Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
After listening to today's news, you'll know first, Minnesota's proposed $500,000 fine targets AI deepfake creation, aiming to close a critical legal loophole for Nudify apps. We'll examine how this legal shift from distribution to creation may impact AI platform regulation and content moderation policies. Second, a Goldman Sachs report reveals the ultra-wealthy are shunning high-risk private AI startups for public stocks and energy sector plays. We'll analyse why this cautious investment strategy is a turning point and how it could affect venture capital funding for AI unicorns. Third, Honeywell's new Surfer Cockpit system promises to prevent runway collisions as serious near misses in the US hit a 10-year high. We'll explore how this ADS-B-based alert technology could transform airport safety protocols and pilot workflows during critical flight phases. Fourth, Tesla's European sales plummet 32.6% as the Musk effect and fierce competition from VW and BYD erode its market dominance. We'll analyse why this sales collapse is a turning point for Tesla and how it could affect the competitive dynamics of the European EV market. Fifth, Xiaomi challenges Samsung in Europe with an affordable flagship phone and a new human X-car X-home ecosystem powered by HyperOS. In this episode, we'll break down this full ecosystem assault and what it signals for the future of integrated tech platforms beyond smartphones. Our first story begins with a decision that caught an entire community by surprise. A man in Minneapolis secretly used a simple AI website called DeepSwap to create deepfake pornography of more than 80 women. But the real shock came when the victims went to the police and discovered his actions might have been completely legal. Now, get this, sites like this are designed to be almost impossible to pin down. They aren't normal companies. They often operate through a maze of shell companies registered in jurisdictions with very lax laws, allowing the real owners to hide their identities and profits. And to make money, they often use high-risk payment processes and even accept cryptocurrency, which makes the financial trail incredibly difficult for law enforcement to follow. As one victim, a law student named Molly Kelly, stated, he did not break any laws that we're aware of, and that is problematic. This is the dark side of the AI boom. So-called Nudify apps have exploded, making it shockingly easy for anyone to create realistic, explicit images from a single social media photo. Experts say it can take less time than it takes to brew a cup of coffee. The sites are mainstream, advertise on platforms like Facebook and Instagram, and available in the app stores. So you see, this exposes a massive crack in the system. Even with policies against this kind of content, the automated ad review systems at major platforms like Meta simply can't keep up. The economic incentive to accept ad revenue often outweighs the slow and difficult process of manual review, allowing these harmful services to slip through and reach millions. For the victims, the impact is devastating. One woman, Jessica Gisteles, saw images of herself created from photos taken at her goddaughter's graduation. She said, "The first time I saw the actual images, I think something inside me shifted, like fundamentally changed." Another victim, who was 6 months pregnant at the time, suffered so much stress that her doctor warned it was affecting her health. This has ignited a legal firestorm. In response, a Minnesota state senator has proposed a new bill that would fine tech companies a staggering $500,000 for every single non-consensual deepfake they generate in the state. This is where the situation takes a more complex turn. The proposed Minnesota law, known as Senate File 1119, is trying to solve a huge legal puzzle: the creation versus distribution dilemma. Right now, in many places, a crime is only committed if the fake image is shared or distributed. This bill, however, would make the very act of creating the image without consent illegal. It targets the technology at its source, which is a major shift in legal thinking. While a man in Australia was recently sentenced to 9 years in prison for a similar crime, the women in Minnesota were left in a legal grey area because the images hadn't been distributed online. And the thing is, it's a constant cat and mouse game, much like the old days of fighting online music piracy. You remember Napster? Law enforcement would shut down one site, like the original Mr. Deepfakes, and the entire community would just pack up and move to a less regulated platform like Discord or Telegram. This makes enforcement a nightmare, as the problem doesn't disappear. It just goes deeper into the shadows. The rise of these tools reveals a disturbing pattern. As Marianne Franks, a professor at the George Washington University Law School, puts it, whatever the worst potential of any technology is, it's almost always exercised against women and girls first. Speaking of the AI boom, the most unexpected news in the financial world today has to be this. Everyone thinks the world's wealthiest families are chasing the next big AI startup, but a new report from Goldman Sachs reveals the exact opposite. While you see headlines about Jeff Bezos' family office co-leading a $405 million round for a robotics startup, or Google billionaire Eric Schmidt's firm backing 6 different AI companies in just 6 months, that's not the real story. We previously highlighted how NVIDIA's meteoric rise can make it feel like everyone's sprinting into private AI, but today's data says the broader money is taking a different route. What's playing out here is a huge cultural divide between new money and old money. Tech founders like Bezos and Schmidt are using their family offices like aggressive venture capital firms because that's the world they come from. Their deep industry knowledge gives them an edge and a much higher appetite for risk compared to more traditional family offices focused on preserving wealth across generations. The survey of the world's ultra-wealthy found that over half, 52%, are getting their AI exposure through plain old public stocks and ETFs. Only a quarter are actually investing directly in those high-risk startups. And as we noted a while back, even the ETF lane splits. Some funds concentrate heavily in a single chip giant, while others spread the bet across the entire semiconductor stack, exactly the kind of nuance family offices like to control. So what's the real play here? It's a crisis of confidence in private market valuations. The smart money believes private AI companies simply got too expensive and they have more faith in the numbers they see on the public stock market. When we place the soaring valuations of these private AI companies alongside the slow IPO market, the contradiction becomes clear. In 2024, a huge number of new billion-dollar startups or unicorns were AI companies. But at the same time, the path to going public has slowed to a crawl. Research shows that in the first half of 2024, there were only 37 IPOs compared to over 300 in the same period of 2021. This creates a massive traffic jam of highly valued private companies that can't cash out, making investors very nervous. And they aren't just buying the obvious tech giants. A huge number of these family offices are investing in the secondary beneficiaries of the AI boom, like the energy providers needed to power all those data centers. Believe it or not, the scale of this energy demand is almost unbelievable. The International Energy Agency projects that by 2030, global data center electricity usage could more than double, with AI being the primary driver. Some of these next-gen GPUs are expected to use roughly 1,200 watts per chip, pushing power and cooling toward a real bottleneck. Some forecasts suggest that in the United States alone, data centers could consume up to 9% of the nation's entire electricity supply by 2030. That's a colossal demand for power, making energy a very smart picks and shovels play on the AI gold rush. It all points to a strategy that's both cautious and incredibly clever. They aren't just passively buying broad market ETFs. Many are actively picking established non-tech companies in sectors like manufacturing or healthcare that are demonstrating the highest productivity gains from using AI. They're also swapping concentrated chip exposure for more balanced baskets. In short, they're investing in whose time's using time's AI best, not just who's making it. And for the venture capitalists hoping these wealthy families will fund their next unicorn, the outlook is bleak. Based on the current rate of companies going public, it would take 12 years to clear the backlog of private unicorns waiting for an exit. That's triple the 4-year timeline from before the pandemic. We were just talking about managing financial risk in the high-stakes world of AI. Well, speaking of high stakes, let's turn to a different kind of risk management, one that happens on the airport runway. Let's start with a single statistic that might just change your entire perspective on airport safety. Runway incursions, when a plane or vehicle is on a runway when they shouldn't be, happened an average of 4.5 times a day last year in the US. And the number of the most serious incidents just peaked at a 10-year high. How serious? In one near disaster in Austin, Texas, a FedEx 767 aborted its landing seconds before touching down on the exact same runway a Southwest 737 was taking off from. The two jets came within 150 feet of each other, less than the length of the FedEx plane itself. Now, Aerospace giant Honeywell is testing a new cockpit alert system called Surf A to prevent exactly that. So the system relies on something called ADS-B, which is like a digital beacon. Planes with it constantly broadcast their precise GPS position, altitude, and speed to other aircraft and to air traffic control. Honeywell's software uses this data to create a virtual map of the airport, predicting if two planes are on a collision course and then alerting the pilots. And in a simulation of that Austin incident, Honeywell says its technology could have given the pilots an extra 28 seconds of warning time. That's a lifetime in aviation. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer of complexity at play. It's not just about creating an alarm. Engineers have to solve the nuisance alert dilemma. If you have too many false alarms, pilots can develop alarm fatigue and start ignoring them. So the real genius is using human factors psychology to design alerts that are so reliable pilots trust them implicitly, especially during high stress moments. What really brought this to a head was the next development. Airlines are already making their move, even though these alerts aren't even required by regulators yet. Historically, the FAA often mandates new safety equipment only times after major accidents. A perfect example is TCAS, the collision avoidance system that's now standard but was voluntary until tragic mid-air collisions forced the change. Southwest Airlines has already spent between $20 and $30 million to outfit its entire fleet of 800 Boeing 737s with similar Honeywell software. Their vice president of safety and security put it bluntly, it is cheaper than an accident. And it's not just Honeywell. This is part of a larger tarmac tech arms race with companies like Collins Aerospace and Garmin also developing their own systems. It's a massive push across the entire industry. Honeywell estimates the software costs tens of thousands of dollars per plane, a tiny fraction of a $150 million aircraft. But the technology isn't a silver bullet. And here's the catch. These ADS-B-based systems can't see a ground vehicle, debris, or a person on the runway that isn't broadcasting a signal. The next step is sensor fusion, combining radar, LiDAR, and camera data. Furthermore, retrofitting older planes can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per aircraft. This raises a serious question. Could we be heading toward a two-tier safety system where passengers on newer planes are better protected? From one American giant, Honeywell, proactively tackling safety, we now turn to another, Tesla, which is facing a crisis of a different sort in Europe. While the electric vehicle market there is booming, soaring 26% this year, one of the biggest names in the game is in a freefall. The numbers are stark. Tesla's European sales just plummeted by 23% in August. Over the first 8 months of the year, the drop is a staggering 32.6%. To put this in perspective, in Germany, Tesla's most important European market, sales fell by an incredible 59% in January, hitting their lowest point since July of 2021. This isn't happening in a vacuum. While Tesla is sinking, competitors like Volkswagen and BYD are gaining ground. For years, Tesla had a huge technological advantage, but that tech moat seems to be evaporating. European automakers are now producing EVs that are a much better fit for their home markets. Volkswagen's ID series, for example, has seen sales jump 157% because models like the ID.4 are better aligned with European preferences for compact city cars and hatchback utility. So what is going on here? The situation presents a fascinating duality. On one side, we have market competition, but on the other, it exposes the impact of CEO Elon Musk's public actions. Believe it or not, this phenomenon now has a name. Researchers are calling it the Musk effect, and it shows how a founder's public persona can directly impact sales. Earlier this year, Musk endorsed Germany's far-right AfD party, and it seems to have triggered a wave of what experts call economic patriotism. In response, German consumers appear to be choosing domestic brands like Volkswagen or BMW as a political counterstatement. In fact, some German companies have publicly announced they are removing Teslas from their corporate fleets specifically because of Musk's political statements. More recently, he appeared by video at an anti-immigrant rally in the UK that turned violent. His message to the crowd was direct: violence is coming to you, and you either fight back or you die. The fallout was swift and severe. 26 police officers were injured, and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer publicly rebuked Musk for his dangerous comments. The reality is, prospective buyers are finding compelling alternatives. It's not just about politics. Competitors from Hyundai to BYD now offer cars with comparable battery efficiency, faster charging, and more intuitive software. The days when Tesla was the only high-tech option on the block, are over. This decision brings both a potential short-term sales bump in the US from an expiring tax credit and comes with inherent long-term risks. Tesla has announced an affordable new model is in the works, but Chinese rival BYD is already selling models for under 20,000 euros. They can do this because of vertical integration. They make their own batteries, their own semiconductors, everything. For Tesla to compete, it risks diluting the premium brand image it has spent years building. It's a massive challenge. We were just talking about the fierce competition Tesla is facing. Well, speaking of which, another major battle is heating up in the smartphone world, where a seemingly impossible move became a reality yesterday. Chinese tech giant Xiaomi has officially fired a shot directly at Samsung with its new 15T Pro, pricing it at 799 euros, the exact same price as Samsung's entry-level S25. Actually, Xiaomi's entire competitive edge is built on a two-pronged model, combining strategic supply chain mastery to get high-quality parts for less, while also investing heavily in their own R&D. We're talking a projected $4.2 billion in 2025 alone, focusing on proprietary tech like AI and imaging algorithms. One top analyst from IDC is calling the new Xiaomi device basically an affordable flagship with high-end features, but priced half a notch down from the top tier. But pulling off an affordable flagship is a high-wire act, you know. Xiaomi built its empire on budget-conscious customers. Now, as it pushes into the premium space, it risks alienating that core audience. Brand loyalty is a huge hurdle. One study on high-end phones showed that when asked to name a top brand, 61% of people said Apple and 28% said Samsung. Xiaomi didn't even feature prominently. They're not just fighting on price, they're fighting for brand perception. Still, it's a clear strategy that is working. Xiaomi has already cemented itself as the third largest smartphone player in Europe, right behind Samsung and Apple. Interestingly enough, their choice of Europe as the main battleground is incredibly strategic. Unlike the US market, which is full of trade restrictions for Chinese tech firms, the EU is more accessible. Xiaomi has learned from the troubles Huawei faced and is focused on compliance, allowing them to surge to a 23% market share. But that's not the whole picture. The real turning point is that this isn't just a smartphone war. In a move taken directly from Samsung's playbook, Xiaomi just announced the global launch of its entire Mijia brand of home appliances, refrigerators, washing machines, everything. If that was just the appetizer, the main course is just being served. They aren't just copying, they are trying to leapfrog the competition with their new HyperOS operating system. It's designed to create a single, seamless ecosystem they call Human X Car X Home. We're talking about a level of integration where your phone, your house, and even your new Xiaomi electric car are all connected. Imagine controlling your smart home devices directly from your car's dashboard. This is a mirror image assault on Samsung's entire business model. As one expert put it, Xiaomi naturally puts the pressure on any competitor in the sectors that it enters, given its operating model of aggressively priced yet good quality products. This is no longer just a battle for the phone in your pocket. As a digitally native company, Xiaomi is trying to build a more modern, software-defined ecosystem that deeply integrates home, mobile, and auto. It's not just about selling you a collection of gadgets, it's about selling you one single, interconnected life. This signals a fundamental shift in what a tech company can be.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.